Okay, hello everyone. Today is July 27th, and this is a Velero community meeting. Let's start it, and first let's do some status update. For the Web 1.10 product, copier integration design has a design PR has been merged, and so the work items has been started, and currently looks to be on track. And thanks everyone for the review of the PR. And in Web 1.10, we continue to do some good builder related refactories, and currently one PR has also been submitted. And for 191 and some more issue fixes have been included. And for more details, we can check these PRs to get the details of the problem and the impacts. Okay, that's it. And next, let's do some individual update. Daniel, you can go first, please.
Yeah, merge the PR and make some change to the CRDs according to the design of copier integration. Add the uploader type to pod volume backup and pod volume restore CRD. And as for REST repository CRD, I added the required fields like the repo type and stuff, and also rename it from REST repository to backup repository. I've done some manual testing and verify everything works. After that, this week I'll add a flag or parameter to the Velero binary to support the default upload type. Yeah, that's and in addition to that, I'll also review PRs, and that's all my status.
Okay. Thanks, Daniel. And from my side, I'm working on the copier integration related work items, and one PR has been submitted for the storage configuration part. And the next, I will continue to work some items like the copier library and the repository provider, and more PRs will be submitted in the coming weeks. Yeah, that's from my side. And Chumin.
I'm still working on the file system uploader, which mainly focus on the configurations and the model that we monitoring the update, the backup or restore copier progress. That is from my side.
Okay, thanks. And Xin.
Okay. I am working on the volume snapshot location refactor and also fix the issue 51 and 40. This is to fix the scenario that REST behaviors break when using the customized CA cert. And this is going to be involved in the Velero 1.9.1 release.
Okay.
And that's all.
Okay, thanks. And Danfeng.
Yeah, I'm working on adding a new environment support, maybe AKS, EKS, or GCP. Then we'll running all end-to-end tests in those managed Kubernetes service. That's all from my side.
So Danfeng, are you using our internal interop to
Yes, I'm looking at
okay.
and I use it manually to create some like AKS, EKS. Yeah.
But then after the test, the Kubernetes cluster will be kept, or will you remove them and create new ones every night?
You mean left the cluster without releasing. Do you mean that?
Right, right. I mean, what do you do with those classes? Do you
And
use them or-
the tool can delete or delete them.
Okay.
They have the way to clean up the result, the cluster. Yes. Okay.
Okay, thanks. And Wenkai?
Okay. I'm also working on the copier integration item, especially the splitting the REST package, and also submitted a PR for that. This is my current status.
Okay, thanks. And Scott?
Yeah, so on the item action progress monitoring, I just responded to some feedback today, but realizing that in the case where a backup is failed rather than partially failed, it was pointed out that we don't currently do that unless it's failed validation, but there's no guarantee we'll never do that in the future. So I'm thinking, since we've added a cancel option, which again, the plugins are not required to honor, but we should probably, if we do fail a backup that's been in progress, rather than at the validation phase, we probably should call cancel. But again, at this point, there's no situations in the current controllers that do that. But I still think that's a good idea to say, look, because if we say a backup has failed, we're saying there's nothing useful here. If we're providing an option to allow plugins to cancel an ongoing operation, we should go ahead and call it to give them that opportunity. But again, right now, we don't think that'll happen because the only time the current controller fails the backup other than partially fails is at the validation stage. It's kind of early on. Once we're processing individual items, that goes to partial failure. If partial failure means, some number of items in the backup failed or in the restore failed. So it's a change that makes sense in the design, but it probably won't make a whole lot of difference in the initial implementation, but it could have future implications. If we ever do, decide to move a backup or restore to a totally failed state once it's in progress. In any case, I still need to go back and look at some of the PRs that Dave has put in place in terms of actually on the implementation side, just to see if there's any other parts of this design that I may have missed that may have changed that we need to take into account. And I also did, I still would like to get some feedback directly from Dave since I'm modifying his original design. I brought this up in the meeting the other times last week, and Orland said he would reach out to Dave to see if he's available to give feedback. If he may not have the bandwidth, in that case, we'll go without it. But if Orland's going to reach out to Dave in case he has some time to give some direct feedback, just because I'm modifying his original design, there may be some of those open questions we have that he had good reasons for wanting in a certain way that we're not understanding because it wasn't spelled out of the design properly. So hopefully we get some feedback from Dave, but if we don't, that's okay. We can go without it. So that's where I am with that. On the volume snapshot location credentials work, there was some feedback there as well. In particular, there were some internal parameters that were added to a struct that we really didn't need. I'm in the process of refactoring that. I also realized that when doing that, because I was starting with this kind of where those PRs were when they were closed out and reverted. So there have been some changes to the backup storage location credentials code, mainly around validation, that I need to look at to see if I need to incorporate those same changes to the volume snapshot location. So I will be revising that PR over the next week or so and updating it.
Okay.
Scott, a quick question regarding the data mover. So I think there's a good point you just raised about canceling the upload or download. Do we support that?
We don't right now, and basically, I think for the native snapshot upload, this is the volume snapshotters where you're doing an AWS snapshot uploading it. As I understand it, those operations really can't be canceled. They're going to the cloud. Basically, at some point you delete the snapshot, it goes away. But if we're talking about this more flexible approach with a backup item action and restore item action, we have these ongoing operations. We call the progress API method to get an answer back. And there are certain situations where we may want to cancel. One of them is going to be if we hit some kind of, because the idea is to have a timeout, kind of like we have with Rustic, after 1 hour or whatever the period. At some point, we say we're not going to wait anymore. We're going to declare this failed. And then we want the proposal in the item action progress design here is to have a cancel method. Now, it could be that the underlying action, because in a lot of cases, it's either an upload or we're creating a CR for some other controller to handle. Those might not support cancel. So cancel may be a no-op, but it provides a point in the API to say if this operation can be canceled, this gives the plugin the opportunity to do it. So if the plugin is interfacing with an API and another controller or operator that it can issue a cancel request to, then the cancel function in the API and the backup item action, restore item action would then call that, and the plugin would handle it. The plugin has the option of basically returning, not doing anything, because it may be an action that the plugin has no ability to cancel once it's in progress. But we want to add that API point to give plugins the opportunity to implement cancel if it makes sense for that plugin.
And so Shubham, I think that should be added to the 4768, right? It's also one important use case we should cover if we decided we need to support it in the first delivery.
Yeah, and one question from me is like, sorry if I miss anything. So here we have the snapshot phase and we have the upload phase, and so I think the cancel should be on the upload case. So for snapshot, we don't need the cancel, right?
For which?
I mean,
Right.
for the snapshot phase and upload phase.
Basically, when we see when the backup or restore is in progress, we have the in progress phase, and we're running the plugins. We're either creating backup records that are going to go into property storage, or we're issuing the restore create calls. And so we're going through the backup or the restore. When we get to the end, that's the point where we then iterate over all of those ongoing operations to say, hey, is this done? Check progress, check progress. If everything's done at that point, we just skip straight from in progress to complete it. If at that point, one or more of those uploads or other operations still report in progress, we're not done yet, this goes into that waiting phase. That was one that Dave called uploading originally, and we had the longer, kind of more generic name. And that's the phase where the next backup or restore can begin, and we go back and check on it periodically. So as we're checking periodically, when we if we hit the point where all the uploads or other operations are completed, then we move to finish, done. The only time cancel really comes into play under the normal circumstances would be if we hit a timeout, just like with Restic upload. We have this 1 hour or 4 hour, after 4 hours by default. This sort of timeout period, and if the Restic pod volume restore isn't completed after 4 hours, then we get a partial failure for the restore right now with an error message timed out waiting for Restic restore to complete. I imagine a very similar situation with these upload progress kind of backup item action, restore item action operations. If we hit that timeout, this should be user configurable, maybe start at 4 hours and let the user change it. If we hit that timeout, we're still waiting, it's not done yet, then we do two things. We issue a cancel API call, which gives the plugin the opportunity to cancel if it can, and we go to partial failed for the backup or restore with that message, kind of like we do with Ristic, saying operation timed out waiting on plugin operation, and then let's switch plugin or something like that.
So it looks like we don't want to distinguish from the which phase to decide which phase could be canceled. We just accept cancel in all the execution.
Right. I mean, the plugin has a cancel API call, but it's Velero that's going to call cancel, and it's only going to call cancel if we hit the timeout, or in the other case mentioned in the comments on the PR, if there's a situation that's going to cause Velero to move that backup or restore to failed rather than partial failure, which we don't currently do. But if we did move to complete failed, because that's Velero saying this backup, this restore, it's useless, nothing useful happened here, you have to start over. That's where we would also want to call cancel on all of those operations that are not yet complete. If the operations are complete, you really can't cancel them because it's already done. But if there's an ongoing, upload operation or ongoing, image copy operation from some plugin that handles images that has not completed, and we hit the timeout, Velero is going to stop waiting for it. Velero is going to declare the backup or the restore partially failed, and this item in particular is going to be listed as a failed item. At that point, Velero needs to make that call to the plugin, pass in that same ID that it was using for progress to say, cancel this thing if you can.
Okay. Yeah, so if the cancel cannot be finished or cannot be completed at that time, it's just a return without any,
Right. There's no guarantees on the cancel. And I know this is one thing mentioned, for example, if you're doing a snapshotting of an EBS volume in AWS and you're starting that upload, I don't think that upload itself, you start the upload, I don't think that can be canceled. So, so cancel is really just like a best effort thing. It gives the plugin author a place to cancel an operation if they have the ability to cancel it, because it depends, because at this point, whether it's a uploader plugin for snapshots or it's some other plugin that, you're at this point interacting with some other external controller, external operator. So you're at the mercy of that API. Does that operator have the ability to cancel operations? If it does, then when you get the cancel call, you can issue it. But some operators may not allow you to cancel things that are in progress. Just like Velero right now, you can't cancel a backup in progress. So if the operator, if the plugin's operator that it's talking to can't cancel anything, it might be a no-op. Cancel might just say, hey, return. We're not doing anything. So Velero at this point doesn't really need to work. Basically, the cancel call is Velero's way of letting a plugin cancel operations that it knows how to cancel. Whether it can or can't cancel the operation doesn't have any impact on the status of the backup or restore. We're still going to failed state. We were already going to partially failed state. So, and the cancel is really a courtesy to the plugin to say, if you can cancel this thing, you might want to, because we don't need this anymore. We've declared it a failure. And it's a way of kind of resource, usage saving, rather more than anything else, because it's a way of telling the plugin, hey, you can stop doing this thing now if you can. But Velero is going to move forward anyway. After Velero says, hey, cancel this thing if you can, and then it goes on. It marks this plugin operation has failed. This is one of the errors added to the backup or the restore, and it goes on to the next thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just want to point out, so from the perspective of the data mover module, I think that should be a capability, right? It should expose or define a way how user may issue this cancel command. And yeah, I agree that the plugin is a best effort thing.
Right. Right. And again, from Velero's point of view, the user is not today. The user is not issuing a cancel command because of Velero backup in progress can't be canceled. If we later add the ability for Velero to cancel a backup, this cancel API on these plugins would also be used then. But for Velero 1.10, the only time we're going to be issuing a cancel operation is if we hit the timeout and a plugin operation, including data mover, hasn't completed yet. And Shubham, if you're on the call, I know I'm not sure what your plan was for what cancel would do. Is cancel something that this first version of the data mover would be able to
it was basically for the timeout use case.
Right. But I mean, does the backup item action and restore item action plugins that you're envisioning for the data mover, is there something that makes sense to do to actually make that to tell that controller that's handling this data mover operation, hey, cancel this thing?
Yeah, let's say you are waiting for the data movement to complete, right? The data movement is triggered. So, but there is some configurable timeout which passed out. So we would want to cancel the operation. and not keep the backup in progress at that time.
Right. And then the backup would then call the data mover plugin to say cancel, this item, whatever it is. And then the data mover plugin would go make an update to that CR that's controlling that operation to get
Exactly.
a cancel directive or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I agree that from the end-to-end point of view, we do not expose a subcommand or somehow the user can cancel the data movement. But from the data mover perspective, I think we should design a contract. Like if you want to cancel it, this is how we do it, right?
I think so. And the idea being this data mover CR that the backup item action plugin is creating to tell the data mover, hey, copy this volume snapshot comment to this other place. That operation can be canceled, and Velero will be able to call that when a backup times out, for example. And because that hook is already there, maybe in some future Velero 110, 112, or 112, whatever, we actually go and update the API to allow Velero users to cancel a backup in progress. At that point, the Velero cancel operation, which doesn't exist today, but if we were to implement it in the future, would also call this on the plugins. If there were any data movement operations that are going. So this would be a hook that would also be used for a future Velero cancel functionality, which is not there today. But from the data mover point of view, cancel would be there, and Velero would call it when a backup or restore timed out.
Okay. I think we will continue to review this two PRs, and hopefully Dave and other maintainers could also make some more comments on that. And personally, I have another questions I just put in the comment, and let's I need to check the Scott's comments later, and let's discuss offline. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And also just mention on there, it's listed on there as well. I'll be working tomorrow, and then I'm got 4 days off, so I'll be back next Wednesday. So it's just a few days vacation time, but I'll be gone for a few days. But I will be back middle of next week, and then for the meeting 2 weeks from today, I'll be back before as well.
Okay. And the next, Shubham, please.
Yeah, I think, can you, I just wanted to ask whether we can merge that data more phase 1 PR.
So I think there are some additional comments.
I removed the workflows and implementation part. Is there anything you want me to add?
Yes, I added a few comments
Okay.
Regarding the use case, if you can check, and also in another discussion with Xing, she has some disagreement regarding the, if you scroll down, she added a comment regarding the life cycle of this moved content. I think we should make sure all the comments are resolved.
Okay, I'll try to address the latest ones. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if there's anything you want to discuss, feel free to ping us.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys to have give feedback on Scott's item action progress monitoring, because we'll be basing the data more design based off the new plugin types, like the new version, backup item action and restore item actions.
Oh, and Shubham, so your last point about starting the CRD design, I would say the comments that I was responding to, we're kind of talking about kind of details level around, like, so I would say go ahead and if you're comfortable starting a CRD design, just realizing that the design PR is not yet finalized, so those CRDs might still change, especially since we're still awaiting Dave's feedback. But I think at this point, I'm not expecting huge changes. The other thing though is that implementing those changes. The CRD is designed for the data mover, but one thing is that the other thing that's the item action progress design depends on implementing is the plugin versioning, because we're talking about
Oh yeah, totally.
modifying the APIs of plugin types. So until that volume snapshotter plugin and backup item action, restore item action plugin v1 refactoring is done, which we already started with backup item action, those have to be in place before we can get the v2 plugins put in place. So that's another thing that we really need to get. We have this kind of long set of dependencies here. We have to get the plugin versioning, making progress on that. We need to get this design approved. Once those two things happen, we can write an implementation PR to get the the plugin changes in place.
Totally, yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say the CRDs on the CRD aspect of the data mover shouldn't depend on the stuff being there. I mean, obviously, it depends on it for connecting it to Velero. But
maybe I can get some early feedback. I'll try to do that next week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Shubham, one question from me is like for the data mover design. Here we have the requirement PR, right? And then I think data mover design will be a combination of multiple parts. For example, it depends on the item action monitoring, progress monitor, and also you mentioned the CRD. So my question is like, will we have overall I mean, design for not a requirement, but for the overall design for the data mover, and then we have the detailed design in each of these things, like this one or this one, or we just have a detailed design for them for these ones, and we don't have an overall design.
So what I was planning was like, once the phase one, I address the feedback on phase one, I'll try to do the CRD design PR along with the implementation using the new plugin version types. So that would be another PR.
So it means we will not have an overall design for the data movement.
I can add these things into the same README file, right? I can just update that file in the next pull request. So it would act as a whole overall single design.
Yeah, Yonghui, I think it means there will be overall design, including the CRD design, something like the Copia integration.
Yes.
Okay.
Relatively large one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that will be great. I think we need to have that overall design. Yeah,
agree.
Okay. And anything else, Shubham?
I had one discussion topic. We can discuss it later.
Okay. Let's thanks. Let's go to the discussion topic. The first one, these ones are from Daniel. So Daniel, can you go through?
Yeah, the first one is regarding a comment by Fong when he's doing the plugin versioning refactor, and there's a concern that after we made this refactor, all the third-party plugin will be recompiled. I personally think that's acceptable. I'm not sure what you guys think.
Yeah, and I was actually talking a little bit about this before the meeting too, kind of to get more detail, because I was looking at our plugins for OpenShift, and we're not in our code. Of course, we don't reference those plugin. We don't import those interface definitions directly, but we are implementing that interface by adding the execute method and all that it applies to. But Fong was pointing out that the other Velero code that we're importing would embed dependencies in it, which would so I think the impact is not on the code in the plugins, but rather the plugin itself would need to be built again, where the go.mod dependency on Velero will need to be 1.10 to make sure it pulls in the updated redesigned, because the root cause here is that those interfaces that the underlying plugin infrastructure are using, for example, when you register the plugin in the server, those are moving to new Go packages. And so the Velero code that's pulling it in, we haven't confirmed this, I guess, by actually trying it yet, but I think the kind of gut feeling is that a plugin compiled with Velero 1.9, for example, if you added it to Velero 1.10, as you know, with the add plugin, there's going to be a mismatch there. And all you would need to do is to take your old plugin, update go.mod to point to Velero 1.10 as your dependency, you know, read your dependencies, rebuild. I think you're good. You don't have to change your code. You know, your interfaces, all that we're making backwards compatible. But you know, you probably will need to compile your plugin, pulling in the the Velero 1.10 dependency, and I think that's reasonable. And I think we'll have plenty of time to test this, so we can say for sure in the upgrade notes saying, any plugins you add need to be recompiled for using Velero 1.10 and go.mod as a minimum. That's kind of where I am with this right now. I think once we get a version of this, that's working, it should be easy enough to test, even just in the topic branch to say, hey, if I try to register my existing plugin, is it going to work? It probably, again, I'm guessing when you add the plugin, you're going to get that message you get from Velero when you try to add a plugin that's not compatible. And that's just saying, look, when you do your go.mod for your plugin, you need to be pulling in 1.10 or newer, because there are changes in the API code underneath what your plugin is pulling in. And I think related to that, and I was also pointing out to Feng on Slack, we want to make sure that in this release, we even for plugins that we're not adding a V2 for yet, we want to get all the plugin types refactored into this new V1 format, so that once you move to 1.10, you should be fine to use those plugins in 1.11, 1.12, whatever, even though we add new versions, because all the baseline plugin versions have been refactored into the new infrastructure all at once. So this is a one-time pain. This is not on every release that we change plugin interfaces pain.
I agree that it is a one-time change, and the error that we will get related to that, it cannot find the plugin with the service name.
Right.
I wonder if there's any way that we can avoid recompiling the plugin. For example, if we keep for the version 1, right, instead of refactoring it, can we just keep for the version 1, keep it as is, but for version 2 and so on and so forth, we're gonna go into the new structure. So that way, we don't have to even recompile the existing one. So existing one just work as is without any compile. But from version 2, then it needs this new thing. Could that be? I mean, I'm just throwing out the idea here. I'm not sure that's the right way to do it, right?
Right. Yeah, I guess the question is there a way to do the refactoring so that the version 1 keeps the current package naming, and then only version 2 needs the new one? That may be possible.
Yes, I think that's possible if we keep the code in the current, directory structure. But I think I personally find it a little messy. I would rather.
It's very messy. Yeah, it looked very messy because you have some here and then the rest was just in the structure.
I mean, yeah, the other refactoring we did to mess with the adding the package name information, the metadata, all that we still want, obviously, but it may be that you can keep it in the same directory for V1 and then only add V2 to the new directory. So that way, that instead of V1, just use generated like before, and generated or whatever is going to be the basically the directory that the package that V1 is in for all the plugin types, and then once we move to V2. That's when we get to the generated / item action backup item action / V2 whatever. If we can do it so that the V1 of everything is in its current location, and we can modify the files accordingly to get that just for the proto generator stuff to work, because of those changes that we realize we need. Because we need those package directives and all that in those files, so that when we do add the V2, things get generated properly. But it may be that you can put everything back and keep it in the original location for now. And so so in other words, your PR that refactors for V1 will make those inline changes that you need for the package generation, make the changes to the builder code that we made, but keep the package name and the directory location the same as it was before, so that there's no change for the V1 plugins. And then it's just the V2 and beyond that would get the new subdirectories. But because we made those, Go packaging changes to the proto files, like shared.proto and whatever, those are now ready to be able to be imported from other directories. So also, if your backup item action V2 proto file needs to import the V1, it can.
I'm not sure I follow everything you said, Scott, but I personally, I think we need that V1 directory and move the V1 code into that directory. That's my point. And another point I would like to raise is that I think it's totally acceptable for the plugin developer to compile their code regularly. Otherwise, they may hit other issues like Golang CVE or any other change remaking. Velero may break their code. So I think they should, in each minor release, recompile the plugin to make sure the plugin work with the latest version of Velero. I think that's totally acceptable and expected.
I also have this silly question, right? Assume that we now need to recompile the plugin to make it work with the new refactor code, right? From a deployment point of view, from the customer, they already using Velero and they already using the plugin as is. What is the step they need to do to forward it? They have to update both Velero and the Velero plugin binary, right?
Yes.
Right. Well, they're having to update the Velero binary to update the new version, right? Because to go from 1.9 to 1.10 means you have to go through the upgrade process. You have to get the new Velero 1.10 image, and the plugins are added as just init containers, so they have their own images. I know, for example, for the OpenShift plugins, we do release a new version of that when we release a new version of OADP, because we usually have at least some bug fixes in there anyway. And when we update to a new Velero version, we do update that Velero import as well to make sure we're getting the latest Velero code, because I don't want my plugin that I've updated for Velero 1.9 to still be referencing Velero 1.7 or Velero 1.8 code there. So to Daniel's point, yes, plugin authors should be updating their plugins when they go to a new Velero version, just to make sure. No, that's not to say they should have to, and the plugin should break, but this is the one-time breakage because we're refactoring the plugins to be more flexible. So this is kind of take the pain now so that you can now use this plugin until you update it to the V2 or the V3. So I don't think that's unreasonable. The thing we were trying to avoid with plugin versioning is to require users to change their code, change the source code. This won't require that. This will just require them to update their go.mod to say, okay, the Velero dependency now is 1.10, not 1.9. Go mod update, go mod tidy and then rebuild, and then at that point you have a new image to add as a plugin. Velero add plugin with a new image. You got to remove the old one, but that should be all they need to do is to rebuild their plugin image using the updated Velero dependency, and their Velero install. If it's an upgraded install that still has the old init container, they would need to remove that plugin and add the new one.
Yeah, so I think we've reached the agreement for this item, right?
Okay, in that case, I think I need to have a short code for some backup action item plugin, and then I will recompile it with this new code to test it, to test on my side. So right now it's broken, and I do not have any. I think I will reach out to Scott to get the OpenShift plugin, because I know that OpenShift plugin have that backup action item, right? Backup item action.
Yeah, if you're using an OpenShift cluster, then you should be able to use an OpenShift plugin. If you're not an OpenShift cluster, then that's going to be But you could even I guess the CSI plugin uses backup item action. You could use that one even to test with.
I do not have any plugin right now.
Yeah,
I do have the Dell one, but that is for the storage plugin, not the backup item action.
Right.
Okay, I'll reach out to Scott later.
You could even take the Velero plugin examples project and then build your own kind of, hello
Oh,
world
I
type
see. I
plug.
see. Yep. I can do that too. Yeah.
That might be the easiest to test with, because then you don't have to worry about the dependencies of anything else. The other thing is that, see, when you're writing a plugin against the release version of Velero, you just put go.mod. You can it to Velero, v1.9.0 or 1.10. whatever. Because you're working against an unreleased Velero, you're going to need the go mod replaced so that you can point to your, your commit and your repo for the code that includes this, because that's not in main even yet. But that's, just because you're just, in other words, the go.mod for your plugin, if you want to pull in the latest version plugin information, you're going to have to, there's not a Velero release in GitHub that has that yet. So you're going to have to do the go mod replace and point to your specific fork, branch or whatever. Yeah, once you do that, and then when you do, go mod tidy and then you build, it's going to pull in, instead of Velero release, it's going to pull in from your dev branch with these changes, and that's going to get that built in to that plugin image.
Okay, I'll give it a try, and I will continue contact, update it on Slack.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll be
Okay,
around kind of off and on tomorrow, but after tomorrow, I'll be gone until next Wednesday.
No problem. I will get this plugging example and play around with it.
Okay.
Okay, so next item, I think, just a small one. Just we wanna create a separate channel and make more, concentrated discussion regarding data mover. Xun, please keep us updated if the PR is merged.
Okay.
Yeah, and third one is regarding the community meeting time. Scott, is there any disagreement regarding the community meeting time in the US time zone?
So I brought this up last week as well, when it was just Red Hat people, and I think Fang was there, and Orlin was here. And what I just kind of reiterated what I said on the comment thread, which is I think it's pretty obvious that we've said that we need the 2 time zones because there's no one time that works for everybody perfectly. My thinking is what we want is to have a meeting set up so that twice a month, everybody has a time that's convenient for them twice a month. And then twice a month, there's a time that's slightly inconvenient, but maybe you can make it. The problem with the current schedule is that the US-centric time zone meeting is midnight your times in Beijing, so that's not acceptable. There's no way you're ever going to join the meeting then. And my thinking was, if we moved it 2 hours earlier, maybe 3 hours earlier, that would still be inconvenient for you those 2 times a week, 2 times a month, but it would be close enough to convenient that if you had to join the meeting because there was an important topic or whatever, you might be able to do it. Keep the Beijing time as it is, but take the US-centric time, move 2 hours, 3 hours earlier or 2 hours earlier. And I'm thinking 2 hours earlier might be better because for Fang and others on the US West Coast, they're 3 hours behind us. So that would be 7 a.m. for them, 10 a.m. for people on the East Coast, and then 10 p.m. for you. And then, so that would, again, it would be some improvement for Beijing. And 9 o'clock would be fine for me, 3 hours earlier. But I just think that would be harder for anyone on the West Coast to ever join that meeting. But, the West Coast people also have a convenient time now. So I'd be open either way. It's kind of, I think 9 a.m. Eastern or 10 a.m. Eastern, which is either 2 hours or 3 hours earlier than the current meeting, would be fine for us. We would just need to decide which of those 2 options makes the most sense. The other timing factor in this is that this is the meeting that Orlin normally runs. We're talking about. He's actually going to be out for the month of August and the first week in September. So I think we can talk about the timing right now, but it really doesn't make sense to change the time until he's actually back.
Okay.
So in fact, the next 3 US centric meeting times because Orland's going to be gone. The one next week, Shubaum's going to be leading, and then the 2 after that, I'll be leading. And then when after that, Orland's back, and I think that's the point when everyone's back, when we just need to make that final decision and say, let's have this time. Again, either 2 hours earlier, 3 hours earlier, I'm fine either way with those 2 options. And I think the Beijing time should stay the way it is, because I think this is the time that I think it's the best compromise that really basically everybody but Orland can come to this meeting. And because it's like 3 a.m. for him, I think. And then the other time zone, we can make it a little bit earlier. And then, you know, maybe some of the Beijing people can come when they need to, but there would be no expectation that they always come, you know, because it is still pretty late.
Agreed. I just have a question. Seems that 10 a.m. is slightly preferred, but you have this daylight saving plan, right? So
yeah, let me think about what that would be. So yeah, so that means if we're doing it at 10 a.m., for example, that's 10 p.m. for you. And then when we switch to off of daylight savings time, that makes it 9. Oh, I see. So the problem is that means that then becomes 11 o'clock for you off of daylight savings time. I mean,
yeah,
I think, yeah. Now, the thing is that, I mean, and it would be fine for me to do it at, you know, 9 o'clock instead of 10, but I think the only one right now that's regularly joining the meetings on the West Coast is Fong, and that would be 6 a.m. for him, which would not be ideal.
Actually, I'm in the West Coast, but I regularly wake up about 5, 6 a.m. anyway, but I cannot speak for everyone who live in the West Coast.
But I think the Beijing time zone meeting is relatively friendly for the West Coast guys, right? It's your 5 p.m. I think.
Yeah,
5
and
or 4 p.m.
it's 4 p.m. in the when we're on winter time.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
5 p.m. or 4 p.m. in the from the West
so-
Coast is good.
Yeah.
And is there anybody other than Fung who's regularly joining these meetings from the West Coast? I don't want to optimize for someone who's never going to be here. It's the only thing. So I don't
think
know. If there's
Dave, I think Dave is regularly. Dave from I think he moved to Caston now.
Yeah, he's a caster. He's still a maintainer. And if he intends to join the meetings regularly, then you know we should certainly take his availability into account. I don't think he's been in a meeting in at least a couple of months, so I don't know if he intends to presume coming to them or not. That's one of the things. Because Orland was going to reach out to him to ask about the PR comments. I was hoping that Orland could also kind of ask if he has plans to come to meetings too. Because again, if he wants to join the meetings, then I want to accommodate him, absolutely. But if he has no intention of joining the meetings, you know, we don't really need. I mean, we need to accommodate the people that we expect to be here and that are making an effort to come here. And if that means we need to be at 9 instead of 10, and that's okay with Fung. But again, my concern is if there's other people on the West Coast that would otherwise want to join. But you know, as Daniel said, we've got the twice a month Beijing time, which is time that does work for West Coast. So given the number of people on the team from Beijing, if 9 would make them more likely to come than 10, I'd be inclined to suggest that. But you know, again, that's just you know. Just
I think we can try for now. I mean, I guess we can try to move it to 9 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, and again,
How'd it go?
talking to Orland before you know last week, I think the plan was we wouldn't actually make the change until he got back and was hosting meetings again, just because we're kind of in this kind of substituting hosts week to week role right now, and I think changing the meeting time at the same time as doing that might cause confusion. So I would hope that we would, but I'd say at the end of September, be on a new time. I just don't know what exactly the right time to do it would be.
Yeah, so it seems that 9 a.m. is more acceptable for most of was in this group at least. Let's wait till Olin is back and confirm with him.
Yeah. I
If
mean, it
everyone
sounds
is
like,
okay, let's make the change. after that.
again, please speak up if there's anyone on this call that feels otherwise, but I get the impression that 9 is either better than 10 or equal to 10 for everyone on this call, except Fong, who, you know, it sounds like is not great, but you could do it. But
But I think Fong mentioned that he's okay to, you know, skip the US time zone, but join the Beijing time zone, right?
yeah, I mean, that's the other point too.
No,
So-
I meant, I say that I can do both because I wake up at early in the morning every day, so.
Okay.
I mean, the other reason 9 works better for me right now is that we currently have an OEDP meeting scheduled at 10, but we could move it if we had to. But I'm just saying, for my current schedule, 9 is more free than 10. So it sounds like the inclination is we're leaning towards suggesting 9, but we'll wait till Orlin gets back for kind of a complete, final decision on it.
Yeah.
Because, that's essentially the meeting that he leads twice a month. So obviously he needs to be, on that, in that decision. I guess kind of the final decision is sort of, he needs to be involved in. But I already kind of basically said the same thing last week in the meeting that he was on that I'm saying now. It's just that we didn't have as many people here. But it should be in the recording as well. But I think everyone has agreed that the Beijing time basically should stay as is. It's probably the best compromise that's there right now.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, agree. So yeah, let's rediscuss when Olin is back and we make the decision. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Daniel. And the next one, Shubham.
Yeah, so are we targeting like parallel backup restore operations for Velero 110?
I discussed with Dylan. I think that I first let clarify that from VMware, I don't think we have time to work on that in the 110 timeframe. I think the top priority is the data mover design and some POC. But he mentioned that if you have bandwidth, you can start. I think it's probably the good time for us to start thinking or discussing about it without writing any formal design. I think that's the plan.
I think getting some design together makes sense. Because that maybe if we have an idea of the design that we've been discussing, then in the 111 timeframe we're ready to start implementing. Because this is the kind of thing that's going to take a lot. Because I think the design process is going to take some time because we're going to have a lot of back and forth and different ideas and have to reconcile kind of conflicting use cases and priorities and all that. So this is the design part of the process is going to take some time as well. So I think getting a head start on that with no expectation of the code landing in 110 yet might make some sense.
Right. I feel it will be like data mover in 1.9. We thought we can finish the data mover design in 1.9, but we didn't. So I think let's not make any commitment regarding the parallel, but we can start discussing and think about this. I think that's the right approach. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, before this, are we? I may be not aware, but are we targeting modernizing the backup controller and restore controller for 110?
That's a P1. I think if we have bandwidth, we can
Okay.
do it. If we do not,
I think
because
that would make sense before parallelizing stuff, right?
Yes, right. Because in the Copia integration, we are also making change in the backup and restore controller, more or less. So what we want to avoid is the conflict.
Totally. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. I think we had done all the go through all the items, and any questions and any other thing we want to mention here? Okay, if there is no questions or mentioning here, I think we can finish this meeting right now. And thanks everyone. Have a good day and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye bye.